This is Heidi from My Reading Life. Welcome back to my channel, and I am here to start a reading vlog. It is June 27th, and it's the last 4 days of June, and I have a lot of books that I want to finish up and get started on for the month of June, and I figured what better way to motivate myself than to do a reading vlog for the last 4 days of the month. So I have 4 books that I'm currently in the middle of, and then 2 books that I'd really like to get to before the end of the month. So let's just talk about those, shall we? The dishwasher is running. Let's just stop that. We'll just stop that for a minute while we talk through these. All right, so the books that I have on the go is one, my audiobook. That's The Tangled Tree by David Quammen, and that is a science nonfiction book that I was inspired to pick up because Doris from Aldi Books has raved about David Quammen, and I have never read anything by him before. So I am like over 60% of the way through that audiobook. It is excellent, so good. Doris did not steer me wrong. So if you liked I Contain Multitudes by Ed Yong and The Codebreaker by Walter Isaacson, I would highly recommend you pick up The Tangled Tree. I'm not even finished with it, and I'm already recommending it to you. If you like that style of science nonfiction, it is super, super engaging, all about how life on Earth was developed and how the actual tree of life, quote unquote, first came to be, and how it does or doesn't make sense at this point in history with what we know about science. So love it. I am also reading this science nonfiction, On the Rocks, Life on the Rocks, Building a Future for Coral Reefs by Julie Burwald, who wrote Spineless, which I read earlier this year. I'm buddy reading this with Britta Bowler and Doris, and it is just fabulous, just really super engaging science writing about coral reefs and the impacts of climate change and human development on corals and what humans are doing to restore and to protect coral reefs around the world. Really fascinating stuff. And then another book about nature. This is the pick for the Book Naturalists Book Club for the month of June. This is Annie Dillard's Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, which is a classic of nature nonfiction. I am that far in, like 3/4 of the way into this. This is a reread for me. I read this a few years ago for the first time. It's basically a collection of essays, reflections from Dillard's life living along this creek, Tinker Creek, in the South in the United States, and her reflections on the things that she sees in her own backyard. It's really good. I will have more to say about it when I do my review for this at the end of the month, but I am reading that. And then last but not least, for Caribathon, I'm reading Small Island by Andrea Levy. This I'm buddy reading with Patrice Jones, Karen at Run Right Reads, and Doris. And I am, again, about 3/4 of the way through this book. This is the story of Hortense and Gilbert, who are from Jamaica and who moved to England at the end of World War II, 1948, and their interactions with a woman named Queenie, who is British and who runs the boarding house that they're staying at, and how these lives intertwine and how they interact with each other and how the wider society interacts with these Black Jamaicans that are coming from sort of the empire, Commonwealth colonies, and moving to the motherland after World War II, after they fought in World War II for, you know, the Queen and country, and how they're received in Great Britain afterwards. Really great characters, really interesting commentary on racism and the social situation in Great Britain after World War II and right before World War II. Really, really loving this book. And then the 2 books that I would like to pick up and get to before the end of the month are A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. Again, for Caribathon, it is a slim little essay about, I believe, Antigua? Yes, about Antigua. And been meaning to pick that one up for a while and really would like to get to it in this month. And then for Pride Month, what was on my TBR was Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, another classic work that I've had for, I think, about a year on my TBR, and I really want to get to this one as well. So I'm hoping to at least make a start on this, if not finish it in the next 4 days. So that's what I'm trying to get to. This is going to be, you know, try to motivate Heidi to get as much reading done as she can in the next 4 days. So stay with me and see how I do. I finished Life on the Rocks, Building a Future for Coral Reefs by Julie Burwald, and this was excellent. So Julie Burwald is just a really great science communicator. She writes about science in a way that's very relatable and understandable and just interesting and engaging, and I really enjoy her books, and this one is no exception. This book delves into, you know, what the health of coral reefs are in the world. It takes us all around the world to different coral reefs in all parts of the world and discusses concerns about the ecosystem and what the things are that are impacting the health of coral reefs. And so there's climate change discussion in here, there's human development and human impacts, and also, you know, just in general, the biology that surrounds coral reefs, but not in a dry scientific fact kind of way, in a very readable style. So I enjoyed that. And then Burwald goes into what are some of the techniques and solutions that people are finding to try to either protect coral reefs or to restore coral reefs. And that was really interesting. There's a lot of overlap between this book and Under a White Sky by Elizabeth Kolbert. So if you liked Under a White Sky, I think this book would be an excellent follow-up to that, because it discusses quite a few of the same issues. The one aspect of this book that I felt did not succeed for me as well was Burwald also discusses some mental health issues that her daughter is having, and sort of in that discussion of these mental health issues, discussing, you know, sort of wicked problems, right? Problems with many causes and no clear solution to them, which I think is true. Both mental illness and environmental problems are like that. There is no clear path to solving the problem. You know, there isn't one solution, one medicine, one thing you can do to sort of fix the problem. And I do appreciate that, you know, discussion of an issue, but I did feel a few times that she was sort of shoehorning in some information that was more personal to her in this greater story of coral reefs. And that felt a little clunky to me at times. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I'm really glad I read it. I love this cover. I think it's really gorgeous, really gorgeous cover for this book. So yeah, that is one down off my TBR for this last few days of June. It is June 28th, so Tuesday. So I will continue on and see how many more I can get in these last few days. Wednesday, and I finished 2 books today that I had on the go. So I finished Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard, and I'm not going to talk about this one because I am going to film a separate review. This is the Book Naturalist pick for the month of June. So I always do a separate review video for the Book Naturalist book club pick. So I will be talking about this. In fact, probably that review video will have gone up by the time this vlog goes up. And then I also finished my audiobook, The Tangled Tree by David Quammen, and that was narrated by Jack Roy. And it was really excellent on audio. I would definitely recommend it. And I would recommend this book for people who liked I Contain Multitudes by Ed Yong and The Codebreaker by Walter Isaacson. It deals with a lot of the same issues about molecular biology and evolution and how we understand basically how different living organisms are connected. The whole tree of life thing that first began with Darwin and what we now know about how things are related to one another, how different species are related to one another or not related to one another, what we know about how many different groups of organisms there are. There's been a lot of arguments and changes about that since I was in college back in the early 1990s. So this was really, really fascinating, and David Quammen can really explain science very well, very clearly. A lot of amusing anecdotes and interesting sidebars and lots of really quirky characters involved. That's one thing about this book that really reminded me of The Codebreaker, is all these different scientists that are involved and how quirky they are. I mean, scientists are human too, right? But this book really shows the foibles of people who are brilliant in their field of work, but then maybe fall down a bit when it comes to interpersonal connections. So that was really interesting. It was really interesting to see how the field of molecular biology and in particular, what we've learned about DNA and RNA and gene sequencing, how that has changed how we understand things are related to each other. There's a lot in this book about horizontal gene transfer, which is not something that, I mean, it's been something that we've known about for quite a long time, but it's not something that's been applied to sort of human evolution until more recent decades. So that was really interesting, all the stuff about how horizontal gene transfer works and how that changes how we think we know evolution happened. So that was a really fascinating read. I'm so glad that I picked this one up. So glad that Doris recommended David Quammen to me. I certainly will be reading more books by him because I think he is a really excellent science writer, which is what Doris has been telling me for years. And so I should have just listened to her in the beginning. So that's 3 down off the 4 that I was currently reading when I started this vlog. So there's only 1 more to go, plus the 2 books that I haven't yet started that I wanted to finish. It is Wednesday. It's Wednesday evening. I do have more work to do this evening. I have another meeting to go to, so probably not much more reading happening today, but there's tomorrow, so let's see what happens. Hello friends, I thought I would close out this vlog by telling you of my success in completing most of what I wanted to achieve before the end of June. So I did finish Small Island by Andrea Levy, which I loved. 5-star read for me. I don't want to say too much about it because I haven't done my final check-in with my buddies yet, but this is wonderful historical fiction, post-World War II England about a couple from Jamaica who moved to England to try to better themselves and what they experienced there. And it sort of goes back from that time period to during the war and before the war, and tells their stories of all the different characters from each of their perspectives. And the last 100 pages is a ride. I will tell you, it is a ride. Excellent book. And then I picked up my other Caribathon read. So I read Small Island for Caribathon because the author's from Jamaica, and the characters are from Jamaica. And then I read A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid, which the author is from Antigua. And this is nonfiction. It's basically an essay, one essay, in which Jamaica Kincaid absolutely flays white settler colonialism, the tourism industry, how big rich countries take advantage of small, less powerful countries, and leave them with fewer opportunities for their own citizens. It was written in a satirical manner, and it read really well after having finished Small Island. I tell you, read these two together. It's really eye-opening, and so glad I read this for Caribathon. Everybody has raved about how good this essay is, and I absolutely 100% agree. This is exactly the kind of writing that I like to read about, to educate me about other places, and also to sort of slap myself awake, because I am one of those tourists that likes to travel to Caribbean countries and have my vacation there and enjoy the beautiful blue water and the sandy beaches. And I do think about the people that live there, but I don't do anything about it. I just go and enjoy my vacation without thinking about, you know, that day-to-day life of the people who live in these islands all the time, and how they don't get to enjoy the beauty of the places where they live. And I understand that to some extent, because I also live in a vacation destination, the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, the nickname of my state is Vacation Land, and in the summer months, we are absolutely inundated with tourists. And there are tons of things that are beautiful about my state that I have never experienced, because it's what the tourists do. It isn't what the everyday people who live here do. But this is something to read if you really want to examine your own thoughts and ideas about tourism and what colonialism has done to the islands in the Caribbean. So yeah, absolutely 100% recommend this one. Another 5-star read for me. So Caribathon, big success. And then I did actually pick this up today. I'm not going to finish it before the end of the month. This is for Pride Month. This is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, a modern classic. I've only read the first chapter. The writing has already completely sucked me in, but I will have more thoughts on this later in a future video. Hopefully the rest of the book is just as good as the first chapter. So yeah, very successful last 4 days of the month of June. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read, and I will talk to you later.